We want to start here with some of the geopolitical intersections flowing from the ongoing genocide in Gaza. And we are very, very honored to be joined here on the show once again by the musician and journalist Lowkey. Lowkey, as always, thanks so much for being on with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy coming on the show. Thanks.
Well, we really enjoy having you here. And I wanted to start with an issue that's been a big one in sort of the mainstream media. And I know that you have also been sort of caught in the intersections of this. And that is this idea that the online conversation, especially social media around the war in Gaza, is somehow being driven by Russia or China or whoever it may be, that there's sort of fake inflation of accounts and so on and so forth. So I wanted to ask you, about that specifically. I mean, what do you think about it? And what's behind, or who's behind these sorts of accusations that are really flying all around the mainstream media?
Essentially, there is a form of shadow war playing out whereby Israel is very keenly aware that Iran is growing closer to China and Russia by the day. And that is really illustrated clearly in the Iranian Operation Al-Wa'd al-Sadiq, the truthful promise, the operation striking Israel with ballistic missiles and drones in an unprecedented way. It actually took place using the missile guiding systems from both Russia and China. Beidou is a Chinese company and GLONASS is a Russian company. They were used to fulfill that. So therefore, it couldn't have taken place without a green light, most likely from either China or Russia. When we look at actually the behavior of Russia vis-a-vis Gaza is quite interesting, because the Israelis were arming with small arms, the Azov battalion in Ukraine, as was covered by Asa Winstanley in the Electronic Intifada. And on the other side of that, Russia then granted, according to Hamas, licenses for the production of Kalashnikov bullets in Gaza. Now, this greatly offended the Israelis. On the other side, also Hamas, figures from Hamas stated that in their communications with the Russians said they would teach the Tufan al-Aqsa operation on October 7th in their military schools within 24 hours of it happening. These are the conversations that supposedly took place. This greatly offended the Israelis. On the Chinese side of things, it's important to remember that China has the comprehensive strategic partnership with Iran that will invest 400 billion in Iran over the next 2 decades or so. China has been operating what Israel seems to perceive as a form of sanction, whereby it is not exporting the dual-use civil military exports to Israel since October 7th. What you've also seen, China refuse to condemn Hamas. You've also seen during that time Chinese control of the Israeli port of Haifa, which was built with Chinese money, fall to under 70%. And you have a fall by 70% because the Indian billionaire that was competing with China has been given far more access to it. But also, quite importantly, China has taken the steps to ban its workers from filling the void left by the cancelling of Palestinian permits within Israel, because Israel needed to fill that gap in some way. You have even alone 60,000 Palestinian construction workers in Israel who have not been able to work there since October 7th. So Israel thought they could turn to China, but quite the opposite happened. China said they would not be giving that the workers would not go to work in occupied Palestine. But now on this issue of information, you've of course seen the much promoted war against TikTok, which has been led by key Israel lobby groups and, of course, the military-industrial complex puppets within the US government. And, of course, they're so ridiculous because actually TikTok's data, which is procured in the United States, goes directly to Oracle, which is a company that is headed by Larry Ellison, who is the largest donor to the Friends of the IDF in the history of the charity and such a close friend of Benjamin Netanyahu. He even offered him the directorship of the company. So TikTok is certainly not China manipulating the perceptions of young people to have an aversion to industrial scale killing that Israel is carrying out in Gaza. But where it comes to the UK and regarding me, the Daily Telegraph, a well-known right-wing newspaper, has published what is the most outlandish conspiracy theory that I have ever had aimed at me before. And it is that Russia and China are working to boost my Twitter account and the accounts of others to spread a quote unquote pro Hamas narrative in Britain. Now, the investigations for this piece by the Daily Telegraph were carried out by a company called Cyabra, which is an Israeli social threat intelligence company. Of course, the Daily Telegraph does not identify it as a social threat intelligence company. However, that company claims to have studied my Twitter account and found supposedly that 11% of the accounts which quote unquote engage with mine are fake accounts. Now, numerous studies have found that the average fake follow account on large Twitter accounts is around 42%. Even Elon Musk's was around that kind of level. So clearly it's below average. And they're not even saying these are people that follow me. They're saying these are people that engage with my account. Now, Cyabra, it's important to note, 3 of its founders are veterans of the Israeli Occupation Forces cyber units. At least 40 of the firm's employees are reserves in the Israeli military who were called up to fight in Gaza. Now, Cyabra is in fact so close to the Israeli Occupation Forces that the CEO, Dan Brahmi, a former combat instructor for the Israeli military, gave a talk recently with the office of the Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson unit titled On Alert with the IDF. So what's quite clear is that Israel is in different ways through its proxies militating against Russia and China by taking advantage of the existing war propaganda which exists within Western societies to try and extricate itself from the spotlight when it comes to the crimes in Gaza.
It really is incredible. And there's another aspect of this kind of irritation by the ruling establishment about the change in public opinion. And there was this report that was recently put out by a man called Lord Walney. You can explain what that is. When it comes, I don't know why they're still lords. Unless is Lord his first name, or is he an actual lord? I don't know. But this is a very serious report because it was a report that describes you as an apologist for terrorism, and then also calls for Palestine Action to be banned. It also calls for a group called Just Stop Oil to be banned. These are apparently very bad organizations that we should all fear. Can you explain to me what's going on there? And I mean, and one of the pinnacles of what we're supposed to believe is some free and democratic place.
So, Jonathan Woodcock is his real name, but he was selected to be a lord in the Houses of Lords. In Britain, you have over 300 individuals who collect a daily wage and are not elected, and it's a lifetime position. So that was quite a comfortable position. Yeah, it was a comfortable position for him to be placed in. But I think an interesting part of the trajectory between the metamorphosis from Jonathan Woodcock to Lord Walney is that when he was an MP, he was accused of sexual harassment by an 18-year-old employee of his. Now, a way for him to escape investigation about that within the Labour Party was to resign from the Labour Party, and then Boris Johnson, the leader of the Conservative Party, selected him to be a Lord. Now, once he became a Lord, he was tasked with being the quote-unquote independent advisor to the government on extremism, political violence and disruption. Now, he has gathered together this 100,000-word report, which has had involvement that we know about and will make clear soon of fully fledged Israel lobbyists. But he himself was actually the head of the Labour Friends of Israel. He's accepted funding from Israel lobby groups even as recently as January. He traveled to Palestine on a trip funded by the Israeli government, where he planted trees with Israel's largest settlement building organization, the JNF. And most importantly, especially when it comes to the Palestine Action issue, is that he is the chair of something called the Defense Purpose Coalition, which is a lobby group where a paying client of that lobby group is Leonardo, one of the key arms companies which is involved in arming Israel in its war against Palestinian life. And of course, Leonardo is one of the targets of the direct action group Palestine Action. Now, to be clear, Palestine Action has achieved what are, relatively speaking, miracles in this country. They have shut down permanently 3 sites for Elbit Systems, Israel's largest arms company in the world. But in this country, they've shut them down permanently, not shut them down temporarily. They've shut them down so they are vacated. They've forced 2 UK subsidiaries of Elbit Systems to be sold. They have forced the British Ministry of Defence to cancel £280 million worth of contracts with Elbit Systems. They forced numerous other companies that were dealing with Elbit Systems to cancel their contracts with them through direct action. What Wolney is attempting to do is to have a more comprehensive ban on the idea and the tactic of direct action completely. Now, where he mentions me within the report is he picks out lyrics from my song Terrorist and from my song Long Live Palestine, and he comes to the conclusion that not only are the lyrics in Long Live Palestine examples of anti-Semitism, but in the song Terrorist, it's a form of apologism for terrorism. So this is a smear job, and it's really a desperate attempt for the captured British establishment that works lock in step with the Israel lobby and the Zionist entity to try and snatch back some ground where really interesting and positive achievements have been seen in this last period during the war on Gaza in this country. So really they're trying to establish hegemony over this public space in that way. We will not stop. He will not stop Palestine Action, even if they are designated as an extremist organization, as he said, just below a terrorist organization. We have already been willing to go to prison, and we will go to prison if that is what has to happen. We do not fear him, and we don't fear Israel. And so it's important that the people that are reading this report understand that actually we are being driven by love for other human beings and our aversion to industrial scale killing.
Mm.
No, I think that's a critically important point to raise there, and very, very interesting background on all these different points. As always, we really appreciate you coming on, Lowkey, and helping us sort through all the background of all these various reports that we see. And we'll look forward to continue to promote your work moving forward. And thanks so much again for giving us some of your time here on the Freedom Side.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.